Welcome to another episode of Real Estate Unfiltered with Bridget
and Angie.
Today we're going to talk about appraisals.
The hot topic of everything real estate, I feel, because appraisals, unfortunately, they hold more power than people think, and they can literally make or break a deal. And unfortunately, as a lender or even as an agent, you have no control over what the appraiser says. Not saying you can't combat them on something, if they're out of line or if they're inaccurate on something, but more often than not, appraisers are very set in their way because who likes to be told that they are wrong?
Not me.
Exactly. So it's important. I guess it's important to know some things when it comes to appraisals. I see quite a bit on my end, but have you seen anything on your end in appraisal where it literally could have made or break your property? Like if you were listing a property or if you had an agent, do you have an example of anything that would have happened or has happened?
I haven't had an appraisal that has come back that would have made or broke a property or like a deal.
That would have killed the deal?
Yeah, that would have killed it, yet, knock on wood.
Glass.
But I have had some, and I think we had a deal together that left me scratching my head, which is normally flagged by government-backed loans.
These are conventional loans are the easy appraisals.
Correct.
Those are usually the ones where you don't got to worry about much with those.
Correct.
Yeah.
It came back. It was a conventional loan. And I think the only thing that was flagged on it was smoke detectors and CO2 detectors. And I was like, Angie?
Yeah. And we fought it. I kicked it back to the underwriter, or not to the appraiser. I said, this is a conventional loan. Why are you asking for this? Because that is like one of the number one things flagged on FHA loans or VA loans, USD, any government-backed loan. That's an instant thing to flag, but I've never seen that come across on a conventional loan. And the appraiser came back and said, no, this is state law. You have to do this. Like these are required regardless of your loan type. I was like, the more you know. So we had to get it done. They weren't going to budge on it. They said you have to do it. It's a safety issue. Which I get the smoke detectors, but I don't know that all homes have CO2 detectors in them.
I don't have either.
Yeah, you have smoke detectors in your house, don't you?
I mean, they're up.
Do they work?
I'm going to go with no because they hang open, and I don't even know if there's batteries in there.
Okay.
Maybe.
Well, mine are. We change our batteries every 6 months, like you're supposed to. That daylight savings time. Every 6 months we replace our batteries. We test them, and they are loud. And there are some smoke detectors that have it installed in them. Like the CO2 is like an all-in-one, but most of them aren't. So it's one thing. So if you are going to buy a house, one of the important things is to look out for that. And I'm assuming you advise your sellers too, like when they're listing houses on anything to do with.
Correct. Yes. I always, when I go on a listing appointment and you decide to list with me, I go through and pick out things that any government-backed loan would flag. And I say, I recommend addressing this now. If not, it's something we may have to address down the road if it comes back. I always like to address them ahead of time. That way it doesn't delay anything in the process.
Well, plus if the appraiser notes them, they have to come back out. That's an additional cost.
Correct.
So the appraisers don't work for free. So they come back, they charge you a fee, and they will charge you a fee each time they come out until the work is done.
But so that's to the buyer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the seller really doesn't, see that.
Yeah.
Or they don't understand that. But I do anyways like to get them taken care of ahead of time, because otherwise, the seller does have to then allow the appraiser to come back through into their property. So it is something that I like to get taken care of before we even list the property, or if it is listed, at least get it done before we get an accepted offer.
Right.
And yes, I do look now for smoke and CO2 detectors after that one appraisal for a conventional loan came back. I always say, do as I say, don't do as I do.
Yeah. Well, I've been there too. When people talk about tree houses, like keep an eye out for this, because a lot of my buyers that I see come through, we get a lot of FHA. That just seems to be common in this area because of whatever reason. I mean, there's many different loan programs, and sometimes FHA just works the best for what the client's needs need. And then, so there's just things to be aware of. Now, so a conventional is usually pretty cut and dry. Usually they're pretty simple on the biggest thing is verifying. I mean, if the house itself is like dilapidated, they're not going to let you live in it. So it has to be livable. It can't be, a rundown shack that has holes in the roof or anything like that. So
Correct.
within reason, they're pretty flexible. But then government loans are way different, because the government loans are they care about the health and safety of your home. So they're not trying to nitpick the house to make it impossible for you to buy it, but they're trying to point out things that could be of concern, because these are government backed, loans. So they care about the health and the safety of the house. So health wise, and everybody has heard this, I'm sure every single person has heard of the chipping and peeling paint. I mean, that's like a thorn in everybody's side when it comes to FHA. But the reason, and that's only for homes that were built prior to 1978, yes, because of lead-based paint. And we will have a painter come on our podcast to talk about lead-based paint and why it's such a big deal. Because I didn't realize how quickly lead-based poisoning can spread. I mean, how it's like almost instant. Like if your children chew on the the windowsills, if they're teething or whatever, like, or even if their crib has lead-based paint in it or their toys, like I didn't realize how quickly that affects them. So that's why they care about it, because of lead-based paint. They're not saying, oh, don't start picking paint chips off your window and eating them. Like, that's not what you're doing. I mean, maybe you are. I mean, you do you. But that's why they care about it, though, because of that's a health issue,
right?
And they don't want people to get lead-based, poisoning, from their house. That's a big deal. Even there's lead in water too, So they care about that. That's a very common thing that we see, and everybody hates it. I mean, I think that's just one of the biggest things.
Yeah.
But it's that, and then if for like safety wise, you can't have exposed wiring in your house. You don't want exposed wires anywhere. And when I say your house, I don't just mean your house. I also mean your garage, your outbuilding, any building on your property. Period. Doesn't matter if it's a garden shed. They look at all of it, because it's not just your house. It's like every building on your property. So it's important to know that it's not just limited to your house. It could be your garage. If you have a pole barn, if you have a shed, whatever you have, they care about all of it. I mean, I've had it once where there was a shed on a property that was so worn down that the clients had to remove the shed off the property to close, because it was like leany. It's like one of those, like, you wouldn't want to go in it anyways, but they had to take it down in order to close. I had an appraisal come back one time when I was with my previous employer. It was an FHA cash out refinance, and they had old vehicles in their yard.
Okay.
They had to remove them.
Really? Wow. I mean,
because it's they're, I don't know if they consider them like a hazard to the ground, like they're leaking fluids into the soils that could then leak into the property, like the well.
An explanation?
No, they said it's considered a health issue. So that's my guess is what it was. But so people that have yards, because I've seen people that have yards full of a bunch of vehicles, and I had one that got flagged on that. So that, I mean, I've seen some pretty interesting things on appraisals. So I think it's just important to know what you're looking for. The appraisers are not trying to kill your deal, but unfortunately, if the house isn't going to pass, we need to be aware of that too as a lender. So as an agent, so if you have a buyer that comes to you with an FHA approval, do you do anything different while touring the house to make them aware of possible issues? Because I feel like most agents understand government-backed loans and what to expect with appraisals, right?
Mostly.
Yeah. Newer agents might not know as much.
Correct. Yes. It's always good to educate yourself with a lender that is well-versed in government-backed loans. So as an agent, you know what to look for. And agents that know government-backed loans will 9 times out of 10 put in the MLS for us agents to see, whether it will apply for a government-backed loan or not, due to chipping or peeling paint or any other issues. But as an agent, when I go in with a client and I know what type of loan they have, I will be looking for things, if there's no notes ahead of time, that may disqualify them from that. So that way, when we're in there, I'll be like, hey, there's chipping and peeling paint here. There's a missing handrail. This door on the second floor leads out to an open deck, and there's no railing.
That's a big one.
That is a big one.
Huge one.
There have been times that, due to inventory, where we have put in an offer and, we were aware of the guidelines. He was FHA and there was chipping and peeling paint. And there was a door that led out to an open deck without a railing. And again, we're aware of it, but it was in his budget and it was all that was available. So in the offer, we wrote buyer to take care of A, B, and C prior to appraisal. And so I went in there by myself and scraped and repainted and put boards across the door.
Yep, so you can seal it. That way they can't go out to it, and they will accept that too.
Correct.
And that might be a cheaper option than trying to put up a railing, depending on how big the space was.
Correct. Yep. And I believe the seller actually put the railing in the attic because that was beyond my handyman skills.
Yeah, it's important to know too because buyers and sellers can do it. Unless it's something like electrical based, something that requires a specific profession to do it. But chipping and peeling paint, installing a railing, putting a light switch cover on your light switch. I mean, so basically that anybody can really take care of it. I guess buyer beware though is that if you do it, it's your expense. And if the house doesn't close, you just paid to do. I mean, obviously you're hopefully not everything closes, but if something goes south, because we can't predict what's going to happen.
Correct.
So just know if buyer takes care of it, it's buyer expense. So
correct. Yes, absolutely. And usually if the agent has noted in there that will not pass for FHA or any government-backed loans, 9 times out of 10, the seller is probably not going to take care of it because they're aware of it. And, it doesn't pay for you necessarily to look at it unless you're going to state that you're going to take care of it, which also is risky because you could take care of that, put that money into it, and then it not close. And now you've just spent money on a house that's no longer yours. So.
Yeah, so it's very important to be aware of that. But yeah, I think it's just important to understand what you're looking for, because you don't want to end up in a situation where you get a report back and it's just listed with things that are flagged on there. So we're not saying that you can't fix them, but it's at what cost?
Correct.
Are you willing to do it?
Yep.
And sometimes if the house is listed as is, that probably means the seller will not assist in any of these repairs. So then it's going to be, how much are you willing to invest in a house that's not yet yours?
Correct. And usually if you're a government-backed loan buyer, does it pay for you to look at the house if it, is listed as is? Probably not.
But you could flip it though, because we can do FHA renovation loans.
True.
So, I mean, that's a good segue into if you love the house, but it's not going to pass FHA. FHA does do renovation loans, and we can fix those items.
That is true.
So, I mean, that's one way if the house, because sometimes those houses that are a little less updated or need a little bit more love, then they're usually priced more in our first-time home buyers price range, because those houses are usually under like 250, usually 225, around there. Not always, but usually if they need a little bit more love, they're priced reasonably because of that. Usually, most times. Sometimes you get a little. I don't know how the pricing works for houses, but I guess it depends on what the comps come back at. But if the house does need love, but you do also love the house, you can do a renovation loan to help fix those issues. And then at that point, the house is yours, because then you do close on it before you do the work. You have to get the quotes and the bids and all. You have to do all the legwork ahead of time. But then when you own the home, then you can take care of it. You do what the appraiser says you have to do. And then if there's anything else you wanted to do on top of that, like update the flooring, or if you wanted to resize your house, or need new appliances, renovation loans are fantastic for updating houses that need a little bit of love. The only catch is you can't do it yourself.
Yeah.
So that's different.
I wish I would have known about that when I bought my house.
Yeah. Yeah. So you can't do the work yourself. So as long as you have somebody that can do it. Like if you're buying appliances, you want to go to Home Depot. As long as, because we need to be able to pay somebody, we can't pay you.
I wish my lender would have made me aware of that.
Oh, whatever. But those are, just things to keep in mind when looking at houses. This is not at all to scare you, but also just to bring a little bit more awareness. Because I feel like the second somebody sees FHA, like, oh, that's all, we can't take FHA. We refuse to accept FHA. It's like, please don't. And then what really grinds my gears is when people reject VA offers. because it's a VA loan, because VA follows the same guidelines. They also do termite inspections, and I don't know that termites are really that common in where we are, so I don't know it's really much of a concern. But we haven't put into that where we need to do termite inspections now for houses, which most like pest control companies can do those. So they can do that as part of it. So there's a little bit of an extra, inspection that has to be done on it. But it just breaks my heart when veterans can't buy houses.
I'm going to go on a little rant here.
Okay.
Because it's a struggle. Like, as a listing agent, I don't mind FHA loans because I, as a buyer's agent, have done many of them. Okay. And I mean, I've gotten them to go through like that. So as a listing agent, are FHA loans attractive? Not as much as a conventional loan,
right?
But yet they're really not that scary to me because I've had so many buyers with government-backed loans. So I'm not terrified of them, but FHA versus conventional, obviously you're going to go conventional, but I'm not afraid of FHA. But when it comes to VA, I am a little bit more apprehensive because of the additional
inspections
that are required for that, which really, really bothers me because I am a huge military and vet supporter. Huge. So it bothers me, because I think vets should have housing.
Yeah.
And it's very
difficult. The VA loan program is amazing. I mean, it's great for vets.
It is. I just wish that the VA loans would make it a lot easier for them to get into housing, and not so many restrictions. I get why they do it, but it also makes it harder for them to get into homes. And it's so very frustrating for me because it should just be made so much more simpler for them.
But again, they care about the health and safety of the house for our veterans. They want them to be in safe homes.
I totally get that, but I think they need to redo that system somehow because they need to be getting into homes.
Yeah, that's the government. Good luck with that. Good luck trying to convince them that.
Oh, and on another note, how about appraisals that come back under the accepted offer price?
That's a big one. Because if the value is lower than the purchase price, that's going to affect the buyer's loan. And more often than not, a buyer is not going to agree to pay more for a house than what it's worth. I feel like that was probably more common during the COVID boom when offers are going in 40, 50, 60 grand over asking.
So I know, and most agents know, we've got a house that has an accepted offer at $350,000. Okay. The appraisal comes back at $325,000. So what are the options for the buyer?
Well, it depends on the loan program. So there depends on what options they have on the loan program. So let's just say that this is going to be a conventional purchase. Okay. They're going to buy a house at $350,000. It appraises at $325,000. The first thing I, as a lender, am going to do is going to kick it back to the buyer and to the buyer's agent and say, hey, we came in under value. Do you have any other comps, or can you find other comps, which are comparable sales, for this property to support the asking price or the purchase price? And then kind of go from there. So kind of like we said in the beginning, how you can go back to the appraisal. This is one of the things where you can go back and say, hey, you use comp 1, 2, and 3. What about these other 3 properties? Like, why didn't you consider these for value? So sometimes the appraiser may have, I don't know what kind of system they have or how they pull the comps, but they have missed that one or for whichever reason. But sometimes they will take that into consideration. Like, oh, you're right. I missed this property because it was, an eighth of a mile further out than this, so we have a way to ask them to review other comps. We can't demand them to change anything because again, they are the final sayer, in that. So let's say that the appraiser says, no, your value is $325,000 based on the comps that we have and the condition of this home compared to other comparable sales. You're at $325,000. Okay, so option 1 was to reconsider value. Not going to happen. Option 2 then is going to be the buyer can go back to the seller and then go back into negotiation terms. They can either say, hey, value is $325,000. We want to reduce price to $325,000, or hey, we still really love the house. Can we meet you in the middle? And make it up that way, or just leave it as is. But if they do that, then the buyer has to bring in that difference, and that's the biggest thing. I don't care how much you're putting down. You now need to bring more money in because your your loan is now based on the appraisal value versus the purchase price. So you're $25,000 short. or,
Mhm.
12,500 short, depending on where you meet in the middle.
Mhm.
So then that really comes into negotiation. Now, if it's an FHA one, you don't have that wiggle room. Like FHA is like, it has to come in
Mhm.
at this value.
Yep.
So then then they protect the buyer. So again, government loans aren't terrible. They help protect buyers, but they're not, a little bit more heels in the sand kind of thing.
Right.
I guess when you come back to sellers, are they usually more receptive if the value isn't there? Like, do they understand, or are they usually like pretty like, no, this is what we're going to sell for, either take it or leave it kind of thing? How often do you see it where because I mean, I won't say this is a common thing, that I
Yes.
happened a couple of times. Um, I feel like it was more common during COVID when all the offers are going in so much higher. And that's another thing too to keep in mind is if you're offering more than the listing price, you're putting yourself at risk at that point too, and what are the odds that the seller will be like, okay, yeah, we'll reduce the purchase price back down to where we had listed it in the first place.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Because usually they're listing at that price range for a reason.
Mhm.
So maybe talk a little bit about how that works, either from a seller side or even from a buyer's agent side. Like, how does that work on your end?
So for a buyer's side, I don't like to see my buyers pay more than the house is worth.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm always going to go back to the listing agent and say, this is where we're at. If the buyer is okay with, trying to ask the appraiser to do the comps, I'll
Right.
do some work as well, resubmit them over. And if that is a no-go with the appraiser, then I do go back to the listing agent to say, hey, we've, exhausted option one. We're now at option two. I don't think anybody should pay more than,
Well,
what
then
the
you're
house is worth.
I mean, not really underwater, but
Kind
you're
of.
losing that equity. Like that,
Correct.
you're literally
Exactly.
paying whatever money that is to the seller. You don't get that money back.
Correct. Exactly. And I don't think that's fair. And I don't think anybody would want to do that,
Right.
and I get the seller is probably going to be upset as well because this is what they were expecting. But, on the flip side, the seller needs to put themselves in the buyer's shoes because would they accept those terms?
Right.
There's that fine line. And I always, try to have each other put each other in,
Right.
the other person's shoes, and then
It makes it more human. I feel like less
right,
transactional than just
right,
yeah.
yes, exactly, and so on the flip side for me, when I'm the listing agent, and if that comes, on my end,
Mm-hmm.
I do tell my sellers, put yourself in the buyer side. What, would you want to pay more than the house is worth? And 9 times out of 10, the answer is no. So, what,
Right. And if they say no, we're going to stay at the 350, and then the buyer has the right to cancel because their offer does protect them. That's
correct.
considered the appraisal contingency in the
Yes.
offer. So if they refuse to negotiate, the buyer can walk away. Now they walk away, they lost the deal, and then they're going to put it back on the market at 350. And what are the odds that the appraiser is going to come back with the exact same amount?
Depends on the appraiser. Could
You
be
know,
a different appraiser.
yeah.
Right, exactly. And that's,
That's
also
a risk, I think, is if
it
you say
is.
we're not going to help you, you put it back on the market. Well, who's say the next appraiser is going to be any different?
Right.
And we can't require a different appraiser because you don't like the value. It doesn't work that way.
And your home has been off the market for, 20 some days
Mhm.
now. So now you're looking at how many days on market. So now, the new buyers that have come in are like, well, what's wrong with this house? Why is it?
Yeah, why to go back on? Yeah.
Correct. Exactly. What's wrong with it? So now you're fighting an uphill battle. So 9 times out of 10, it is best just to meet the current buyer where you're at or try to figure out something.
Or try to negotiate some way.
Correct. Yep, exactly. But, when you're negotiating multiple offers and you are going above the asking price,
Mhm.
it's fine, to go somewhat above. But like I always caution my sellers, okay, this is great that we're, 10, 15, whatever thousand above the asking price. You have to now think about down the road when the appraiser comes out, is it going to appraise? Because sellers get excited.
Right, absolutely. Oh, yeah. They're got more, yeah.
Yeah,
they're getting a lot more
exactly.
money out of this than they thought they would.
Correct. We have hurdles because home inspections have now come back into play
Mhm.
somewhat. So now we've got, okay, great. You accepted it at, 15,000 over asking price. Okay. Hurdle one, we've got to get through the home inspection. Okay, great. Home inspection went great. We're good there. Hurdle two, we now have the appraisal contingency.
Mhm.
If the appraisal contingency, doesn't come in where the accepted offer is,
Mhm.
we've got two options. Okay. We have to hope that A, the buyer is going to bring the cash to make up the difference, or B, you have to drop the price. And I'm going to be completely honest with you, Mr. Seller. 9 times out of 10, you're going to have to drop the price to match what the appraisal came in at. And if you don't, it's going to have to go back on the market. And then we are basically starting from scratch, but now we have a bigger hill to climb because of it. So
I have seen on offers before too that there is like an appraisal buffer. So if they do ask, because technically I feel like the buyers put themselves at a risk by offering over asking. So it's, do they? I know seen it before. They put a buffer in, you know, within 10,000. You know, if that seller will just or the buyer will just pay that difference. Is that common to see? Because I mean, I don't think over asking is quite as common. But I'm assuming the house is listed at a price for a reason. You don't just pick a number out of the air and hope for the best.
No.
Yeah.
No. I mean, it's not you go on Zillow and go, yep, there's the price.
Oh,
do not use Zillow. Zillow is anywhere.
We will talk about Zillow on a different episode because Zillow, oh my gosh.
Their numbers are off anywhere between 12 and 20%. Do not go by Zillow. No, I mean, to come up with a price, most agents have a very well thought out plan, you know, and calculation that they use. Everybody's different, but that's how they come up with the price.
Right.
However, it is up to the seller, as I always say.
Your house.
You're the boss. You know, you let me know. But that's a different topic for a different day. Anyways, but yes, the price that we recommend is the price we recommend for a reason. So it's usually there.
Right.
You know,
and usually if you're a buyer, it's like if we have a buyer and they want to offer over asking, you usually tell them like, yeah, it would probably go for this because usually you can also verify count. So we're not saying you can't go over asking. Just make an educated choice when doing that.
Correct. Yes.
So reach out to your agent because we as lenders don't have any control over that. All we do is order the appraisal and then we go off what the appraiser says. Anything else above and beyond that is going to be right through your agent. So make sure that you're asking your agent these questions or take what they say with, you know, a grain of salt. Just be aware because the whole point is to educate you so you don't end up in a hurt. So to say, going backtrack into the FHA appraisal is like, they're just making you aware of these things. They're not saying you can't do anything. Ultimately, it's your choice, but just be aware of what could happen because we don't like seeing deals fall apart.
Correct.
You know, because we don't want to get that far in the process and then have everything just go away. You know, so it's just more knowledge is power.
Absolutely.
Honestly. And trust the guidance of your agent, you know, when it comes to that. Because again, we as lenders, we are completely removed from the appraisal process. I mean, I as a lender am. My team obviously we have our own appraisal team that takes care of it. But I as a lender have no control and no say at all. I don't even know who the appraiser's name is. I don't get anything because we are removed on purpose. Like I legally cannot contact an appraiser or talk to them. Like everything goes through my appraisal management company and the realtor. Like so I don't get any say. So I just get what is sent to me. So don't shoot the messenger on this. I'm just saying it's not, I have zero control. I will fight the good fight the best I can through my team, but I have literally no say in the matter. And I can't say, well, we don't want that appraiser. We want this one. Everything goes through, we have our own, like almost like a round robin kind of thing. And those appraisers in our system that are approved appraisers based on, you know, their merit, their licensing, all these things. So I have zero control over appraiser. Why didn't you call so-and-so? I didn't call anybody. You know, so it's important to know that lenders don't have control over that. And that's for a reason. We can't have any control over that.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah. I guess just more, knowledge is power.
Absolutely.
That because appraisals can really be a make it or break it situation when it comes to properties. So take everything you can with a grain of salt, but also make an educated decision based on the property and what kind of program you have, you know, what your options are. If the house does end up being, you know, a little bit of an issue, talk to your lender, get creative if you can with financing. Or find solutions. You know, we don't want to say, oh, you're denied. You know, we want to try and get you to that finish line, but just, you know.
Don't be afraid to ask questions. So
yeah. All right. Well, thanks for coming to our
to this episode. And please leave your questions or comments below or message us directly if you have any. We're happy to help.
Thanks for tuning in.